The 1950s. For many, the name conjures images of America's golden decade, a time of peace, prosperity, and unshakable confidence. After the hardships of the Great Depression and the chaos of World War II, life finally felt safe again. But beneath the polished surface of suburban homes and booming factories, the 1950s were quietly reshaping the nation in ways that still define the United States today. When the Second World War ended in 1945, America stood alone. Its cities were untouched by war, its industrial might was stronger than ever, and its military power was unparalleled. Millions of soldiers returned home, ready to build families and reclaim a sense of normalcy. The government stepped in with programs like the GI Bill, helping veterans go to college, buy homes, and find good jobs. This didn't just help individuals. It ignited an economic explosion that would transform everyday American life. In the early years of the decade, American industry made a remarkable pivot. Factories that once built tanks and bombers now churned out automobiles, televisions, and refrigerators. Jobs were plentiful, wages were rising, and for the first time in history, a massive middle class became the true backbone of the nation. Homeownership skyrocketed, and a powerful wave of economic optimism swept the country. The American dream wasn't just a fantasy anymore. For many, it was becoming a reality. The most visible symbol of this new dream was suburbia. Across the country, vast developments of affordable single-family homes sprang up, offering space, safety, and a yard for the kids. These neighborhoods completely changed how Americans lived. Life began to revolve around the daily commute. Family dinners around the television and backyard barbecues. This new lifestyle also reinforced traditional gender roles, with men as the breadwinners and women as the homemakers. This era also saw the explosion of consumer culture. Advertising became a powerful force, teaching Americans that success and happiness could be measured by the things they owned. Cars became essential, filling up newly built highways. Drive-in theaters turned into popular social hubs, and massive shopping centers started to replace traditional downtown stores. Convenience, comfort, and consumption became central pillars of the American identity. But no invention revolutionized American culture more than the television. By the end of the 1950s, a TV set was a standard fixture in most living rooms. Every night, families would gather to watch the news, laugh at sitcoms, and be entertained by variety shows. But they were also watching commercials that shaped their desires and opinions. Television influenced everything from politics and entertainment to how Americans saw themselves and the world. Yet, despite all this prosperity, a deep and constant fear lingered just beneath the surface. The Cold War cast a long shadow over global politics, and Americans lived with the terrifying possibility of nuclear annihilation. Tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union were incredibly high. The existence of nuclear weapons meant that destruction on an unimaginable scale was now possible, and the threat of sudden war felt chillingly real. This fear seeped into everyday life. Civil defense campaigns became commonplace. School children were taught to duck and cover under their desks. Families were encouraged to build fallout shelters and stock emergency supplies. The fear of communism wasn't just an external threat. It crept into American society itself, leading to what became known as the Red Scare. The Red Scare turned fear into suspicion. Politicians, like Senator Joseph McCarthy, made reckless accusations, claiming that communists had infiltrated the government and other institutions, often with no real evidence. Careers were destroyed overnight, friendships were shattered, and showing your loyalty became a public necessity. Congressional hearings and industry blacklists created a stifling atmosphere of conformity and silence, where the fear of being accused often outweighed the freedom to speak your mind. But even with this climate of fear, a powerful belief in progress endured. The 1950s were a time of incredible scientific advancement. New medical breakthroughs, like the polio vaccine, reduced the threat of disease. Technology made daily life easier, and constant innovation fueled a widespread confidence in the future. The massive interstate highway system began connecting cities like never before. Industries expanded, and Americans embraced the idea that technology could solve almost any problem. However, this bright picture of prosperity had a dark side. The American dream was not available to everyone. For millions of African Americans, especially in the South, life was defined by racial segregation. A brutal system of inequality separated people in schools, on public transportation, in housing, and in the workplace, making a mockery of America's democratic ideals. But the seeds of change were being planted. In 1954, a landmark Supreme Court decision, Brown v. Board of Education, declared segregation in public schools unconstitutional. Although it was met with fierce resistance, the ruling was a critical turning point. It sent a powerful message that change was possible and gave new momentum to the growing civil rights movement. Soon, acts of quiet courage began to make waves. In Montgomery, Alabama, Rosa Parks' refusal to give up her bus seat to a white man sparked the Montgomery bus boycott. This year-long protest was led by a charismatic young minister named Martin Luther King Jr. The movement he championed was built on the principles of nonviolent resistance and moral authority, forcing the nation to finally confront its deep-rooted contradictions. At the same time, another revolution was brewing, a cultural one, led by America's youth. Teenagers emerged as a distinct and powerful social force, with their own music, fashion, and attitudes that challenged the status quo. The raw energy of rock and roll, delivered by artists like Elvis Presley, unsettled older generations. It was a sound of rebellion, a symbol of youthful energy and cultural change that hinted at bigger upheavals on the horizon. On the world stage, the United States was solidifying its role as a global superpower. The Korean War in the early 50s reinforced America's military might, while new alliances and foreign aid programs expanded its influence across the globe. The country fully embraced its position as a world leader, taking on responsibilities that would shape international politics for decades to come. By the time the 1950s drew to a close, America was a nation of contrasts, caught between comfort and unrest. Prosperity existed alongside fear. Unity existed alongside deep inequality. Tradition existed alongside rebellion. On the surface, the decade may have seemed calm and orderly, but it was really the crucible for the dramatic changes that were about to unfold. As the nation stepped into the 1960s, all the tensions, hopes, and contradictions that had been simmering throughout the 50s began to boil over. The struggle for civil rights would intensify, a counterculture revolution would erupt, and America's identity would be challenged and reshaped once again. The 1950s didn't just define an era. They set the stage for the future and permanently changed the course of the United States. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey back in time interesting, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into history.